those of you that don't know me, my name is Roland Hege. I belong to this club, Charlotte Club, Concord Club, Association, American Association of Woodturners, and Ornamental Turners International. It's a good thing there's not another club in the area. I almost feel like starting out, hi, I'm Roland Hege, I'm a woodturner, like they do at AA. Okay. What I'm going to show you tonight is threading, how to put threads on your stuff, and there's lots of ways to do it. The way I'm going to do it is just the way that I do it. If you go to another demonstration, the guy does it differently, doesn't mean he's right or I was wrong or whatever. Just there's 1,000 ways to skin this cat. This is an example of the quick and easy way to put threads in. If you want to make a box, puts things together, you're making something, you want to hold stuff together. Those are just caps off of the little plastic thingamajigs that I had. I had more. You have to be careful with those because you're going to epoxy this stuff in, and you want to make sure you get it in the position that you want it in, because after you do that, it's too late. It's going to be either lined up or not. Okay, that's an example of the quick and dirty way to do it, okay? This is an example of hand chasing. I'm going to show you all how to do that tonight. And this is an example of hand chasing. The dark wood is, I think it's cocoa bolo and African blackwood on that one, so if you're allergic to wood, we got a guy who belongs to the club with everything, and I don't bring that stuff out when he's around. And this is an example of machine cut threads. And I'll show you all how I do that here.
Valley sells some brass inserts male and female, so
Right.
it's got a really nice use.
Like for urns, yeah, that's a Mac Dad. It's the easiest way to do it. I'm looking for some more machine cut ones. This is hand cut. The machine cut threads are they're almost perfect all the time. The hand cut threads, I'll show you. It's a chancy thing when you do them, especially if you're doing a demo. Something's going to go wrong. It's going to go wrong in a demonstration. I guarantee it. But any of these, this stuff up here, this is all machine cut. Oh, this is, I'll pass this one around. That's machine cut. When I made those, there was only 3 of us in the country that made threaded game calls that I know of, and that was pretty cool. There was only one of us that did threaded game calls that had rose engine work on it, and that was me. Now there's a couple of folks that do it. And the reason I did that, and one of the reasons I got into threading was several years ago, the Southern Piedmont Club was doing the county fair, and the guy came over, and I do this a lot, it's how I get into stuff. People will say, oh, you know, we should be able to do this, wish I could do that. Anyhow, a guy made duck calls. And he came up to our booth and he got to talk and he said, man, he said, I sure wish there was an easy way to thread these, because when we're out in the field, they'll come apart and you end up losing part of it because they use O-rings to put them together. So I went home and I'm laying there going, I could do this. I started researching it. I looked up Bonnie Klein's threading mechanism and said, I'm not paying $600. But then I started researching and found out they did this in the 1800s. Threading was a big, big, big deal back in the 1700s. There was one lathe company. What they spent a lot of their effort doing was making threads to cut, or making lathes to cut threads on wood. Holtzapfel family. Then they got into ornamental lathes and rose engines and that sort of thing. But their biggest selling stuff was making threads. Okay? So what I'm gonna take, oh, the hand chase, let me pass this set around. For those of you that haven't seen hand chasers, that's what I'm gonna start with here first. That's sort of like what they look like. The deal with hand chasing threads, and anybody that demonstrates it will probably tell you it's not so much what you're doing, it's the wood. You cannot hand chase just anything. It will not work. I've tried it. The stuff that I sent around is just an example of the stuff that works. I've got pieces that threads pulled out. I've tried all kinds of tricks, all kinds of things. One of the things that I'm working with now is I'll do a pass, put sanding sealer, shellac sanding sealer, so it soaks in there, let it dry, kind of bonds the wood a little bit. You can try to chase it. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. I've done thin CA glue. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But if you have the right wood, 99 times out of 100 it works. And the right wood is boxwood. But it's very hard to get, very expensive when you find it. And I like using American woods. You can use a lot of exotic woods. Cocoa bolo, African blackwood, ebony, rosewood, those sorts of things. But when you're in a group like this, or maybe you may have an allergy to it that could actually end up killing you. And I like working with American hardwoods anyway. And the wood that I found that works the best, and I just found this out not too long ago, is persimmon. That's a piece of persimmon.
Oh, I used to have a persimmon.
Oh man, if you got persimmon, hang on to it.
Got one in the
Years ago.
Okay.
Anytime.
It is the American ebony. It's the same as ebony, except it doesn't have the oils in it. It doesn't have the black color. And it holds form real well. And I learned a lot about holding form with threads from ornamental turning, because I'm into ornamental turning. It's a whole different world. But you want something that's going to hold shape. It's not as hard to machine as people make it sound like. It's actually, I love it. And it's a good wood. Okay, any questions? Like I say, the wood's the trick. I'm just going to put a hole in this, and I can thread from anything. You can make it any size that you want. All the machine cut threads that you see, or if I pass around or up here, they're all 10 threads to the inch. Because that's what this is. All the hand chase threads that you're going to see that I have here, 16 threads to the inch, because that's what they are. It doesn't matter if it's that big or that big, okay? And it does not matter if you're fitting one part to the other. Who cares? You're trying to screw this thing together. I've made, I was telling somebody earlier, I've made lots of salt and pepper shakers that you screw together and put S on one and P on the other, different colors. I've done all kinds of stuff. And what I like to try to do is get the lids to fit both of them so that they're interchangeable. It just wouldn't matter. It's just one of these crazy, silly things that I go through mentally. OCD, I think. Okay? But it doesn't matter as long as they fit. And that's all you're looking for. And this is just a 1-inch Forstner bit. And one of the things you got to be real aware of when you're doing threads, one piece has the hole and the other piece has the gazinta. When I was in industry, we called it the gazinta. It goes into this one. It has to be bigger. It has to be bigger by a certain amount, and if you have chasers, you'll know what that amount is. I used to teach machine shops, and just for you guys that are curious, the right difference is 0.975 divided by the number of threads per inch. It doesn't matter. You don't have to carry that whole chart with you. Okay, that'll get us that. This is the same lathe we had down at the show.
Yes.
Okay. Same kind of trim. Good machines. I like taking stuff out of the tailstock when I'm not using it.
Oh, yeah. Oh. Oh, okay.
If you don't, you end up banging your elbow into it and you end up with what's called Turner's elbow.
That's it. It's inside.
It's all this way, there are holes in his elbow.
I had it running slow so I could drill. I'm just going to speed it up to do a little bit of preliminary work. Another thing that's very important in threading is you want to have a lead in. Without that, especially when you're hand chasing, it creates real problems for you. Imagine I have this piece that's chucked up, okay? Chucked up here. I just put a hole in here. And I want to put threads on that. If I take the chasers, they look like that, right? The inside chaser.
Yes.
If I start coming along with my chaser, that's going to catch on that corner, just going to keep following through with my chaser. It's not going to pick up and do anything. But if you round this, it gives a chance for one of those to catch. Then you'll do what they call striking. We'll bring it around. I'll show you. I'll try to go slow. You bring it around, and that's what gives you the ability to catch up with itself. It does all the work, believe me. People try to explain it to people without them seeing it. That they say, well, how do you keep up with it? The cutter is going to take the path of least resistance. So if there's already a groove there, it's going to follow that groove to cut further in. So you're going to come around. Hope this makes sense. We're going to strike it. We're going to come in and work around like that. And then work our way in. And it will follow it. The only thing that may happen when you're hand chasing is you'll hear this. Okay? That happens. You just pick the threads right off the wood. It's the sound you don't want to hear. Hopefully we won't. I've got extra stuff just in case I had to start over. But it will follow itself. And I'm threading, believe me, I'm going to thread slower than I do at home. Even in wood that's rough to thread in, I've had some success. I'll thread at 900 or so RPM. I just finished reading an article a couple of months ago by a guy who hand chases. If you want to come up and look at some of the stuff I've done, sample stuff, you'll see the thread. If you look at the thread, it does this all the way around. Okay, that's snaking. It's because the wood's not homogeneous. It's soft and hard and soft and hard. It wants to take the path of least resistance. If you kick the RPM up, it eliminates some of that. And I found out that the guy was right. When I first started hand chasing, I was scared. man, it'll only go down to 300 RPM, you know. But at 900, once you get used to it, 900 RPM is not bad. So I'm going to radius the front end of this, get the inside of the hole. Want enough radius that my tool, that the radius is bigger than the distance between two thread thingies, the pitch. Because if I do that, then it won't catch them on a knot thread for me. Make sense? Okay. The other thing I want to do is put a relief to go into, because I want some place to stop. So I have that starting position there. Then when I start coming around, I'm threading. Chaser's in there, follow me? Want some place to stop where I don't end up banging into something, because as soon as you do, it's going to rip all those threads off, because this is very, very delicate even in good wood. So I'm going to cut a section in here out so that the inside of the hole looks like this. Make sense? So then when I come through, I have a place that I'm going into space. And very often when I'm doing threading like this, I'm doing a container or a box. Well, I'll have this cut out. That's all going to be part of the box inside, so I cut away into it anyway. Okay, but for this, I'm just going to cut a recess. And if you do urns, if you end up doing urns like for pet urns or funeral urns, what have you, you could take, and I've seen guys do this in demonstrations, they'll hollow out this urn, do this beautiful thing, and they'll take just a small piece that's going to be the threaded piece. They're not going to do the whole container. I mean, I did that because I could do that. I didn't have to worry about screwing that up when I get done. And then they'll glue that threaded piece in with the finial on top, and it all threads together, and people go, oh my goodness, look what he did. You know, that's part of one of the trick things. And if you're doing a box, you're gonna thread the box. Thread it before you go too far into it. Because if you're gonna screw up someplace into it, or if something's gonna go wrong, it's gonna be right there. So you don't have a lot of time. You can throw it away, start over, and grab another piece. If that makes sense. So this is nothing more than just it was an Allen wrench. This is a very expensive tool. It was an old Allen wrench piece, and it used to be longer. I've used this for 5 years or so. I used to make Christmas tree ornaments with this tool, hollowed them out, and I literally have made hundreds and hundreds and hundreds. Now I have a different tool. But anything that you can make up that will hold a little bit of an edge, it's not terribly great steel, but it's hard enough to hold enough of an edge to do that. Okay, I'm back in there about that far. Okay, does it show? Yeah, okay, good. And when I'm doing hand chase threads, I'll do the inside threads first and then the outside threads. When I do machine cut threads, I do the outside threads first and then the inside threads. And I'll explain why. It's just easier both ways to do that. And a lot of it's for looks. This is for just the easiest way to do it. In hand chasing, you want to take all the easy ways. Now, a couple of techniques in hand chasing. You don't have to have this underarm support. Funny thing is, Europeans don't use it, and Americans are starting to use it. And it used to be Europeans used it all the time. What it was, this was a tool that woodturners, they would have a leather strap on it, put it around their arm, they would hang down here. That's why they call it an underarm. In the old days, in pole lathes, tool rest only went this way. You didn't move your tool rest around. You couldn't. There was no way to do it because this part of the lathe was fixed, this part of the lathe was fixed, and they would take this around, get it, move it, or they had a board that would go across here and they hang it in position. Okay. To do inside stuff, they would use underarm rest, and they would grab it, set it up on there, take a gouge, whatever, and they do their front stuff. Okay, it's where it came from. Then when they went into thread chasing and stuff, guys would do this, and I like it because, well, for one thing, it's different, and the other is I feel real comfortable with it. You can very easily. And if you do the outside thread first and then do this to fit it, this is the way to go, believe me. Because you've already got that one cut. Now I'm going to cut a little bit, try it. Doesn't fit, cut a little more, try it. Okay, otherwise, if I didn't use this, does that make sense? Okay. And if I go too fast, just say I don't understand it. I'm good with that. The way it's done today is set the tool rest that way. And I've seen lots of guys do this. And chase, 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 chase. Okay, they get to where there's a good looking thread. They're ready to go. And then they got to fit a piece, move it out of the way, try it, come back. I don't have that patience.
Cutting right on the center line? Right on the center line?
Yeah, you want this to be, the cutting edge to be on the center line, so you adjust that to where you want. That's the other thing I like about this, is I can adjust this where I want it to be, and I can feel it. Okay, I can't feel the other one. And like I said, I've seen top-notch turners do it both ways, and whatever way works. But if you buy hand chasers, this is extra. So if you've got to worry about money, I wouldn't worry with it. Again, I had access to a seriously nice machine shop. Then I could get by with murder, so it didn't matter. So I'm going to strike this. I'm going to strike this. I'm going to go in at an angle, and I'm going to work around like that, okay? I'm working around. I can feel unevenness. Feel unevenness of the wood, hardness and softness. That's a challenge. See it bounce? That's not terribly desirable, but we can work with that, okay?
Well, what's your first approach angle there? Maybe 15 degrees off?
45 maybe even. You want to come in to where it picks up a thread, and then it'll pull the tool through somewhat. And once you get two teeth in there, man, it'll pull fine. Then you get, as you come around, you're actually cutting a little bit down. See that bouncing? That's not great. That's in the wood. And running fast may have helped that some. But we'll try it. What do you say? How's it look on the screen? Can you see threads?
Yeah.
It's not any
Roland,
harder.
if you go through and move in threads, do you hand chase it again afterwards? Or?
Yeah, it's a good idea. Let me put some CA glue on there, because I brought it just to do that. And see if it doesn't stiffen it some. But this wood is dense. And I just did this the other day with out of this same section of the log. And there's no telling, the piece next to it might just do better, who knows.
What wood is that, Roland?
This is persimmon.
Oh, percent.
Yeah.
What's the other wood that's called American ironwood? There's two.
It's ironwood.
There's two varieties of it.
Oh.
Oh, hornbeam and hawthorn. Have you ever tried those?
No.
They're really hard.
I've done pear,
And cherry, maybe?
cherry sometimes works, generally doesn't. Holly sometimes works, generally doesn't. I've got some that I've fooled with. And, no rhyme or reason. Boxwood, I've done it. Man, that's like cutting plastic. And I've done plastic. That's a thing too. Let's see if I brought a piece. If you want to practice, yeah. Man, that's the stuff. I mean, you can't lose. It's pretty homogeneous. And that's just to see if you're doing stuff right.
Do you know what that is? You said plastic. Do you know, like
I don't.
polypropylene or something like
Yeah,
that?
this didn't, but it's
Yeah,
it's not Delrin.
UHMW.
No, that may be Delrin. That might be Delrin. No, it's not Teflon. And UHMW is a little clearer, milkier looking.
Actually, you can get that up into black. I used to use it to line transfer points.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, UHMW just about anything.
Oh,
you
it's
want.
pretty neat stuff. It's pretty cheap. PVC would be another one to try. I just put some thin CA glue on there, hoping that it goes in and stabilizes it some. And then I just sprayed on accelerator. Thank you. And when I do machine threads, I always put CA glue because it will work real good. It's just hard and soft.
So once you catch your thread, you're going straight in.
Yeah, you want to come around and you just work your way around a little bit and then you're going straight. And that's the other thing with hand chasing is keeping everything straight. So if you've got tapered threads, now the piece that you're threading in there, you want it to match up. It's got to be a little bit tapered. And I've got pieces here that they're real sloppy going in, and they go together. It's like pipe threads if you're familiar with machine tool stuff. And it tightens up and it does fine. And very often with hand chased threads, I'll end up with the male and the female not flattening out. Yeah, pass this one around. Just an example.
Ideally, if you could find some boxwood, just use it and turn dowels and
Yes.
plug it and just use that for threading.
Yep. That's why I say people that do urns, do them for a living, they do threaded. You see a lot of them, they're very fancy, and I have a threaded little piece up here like that big.
That's amazing.
That little piece in there is all they're doing. And now they're going through the brass.
Yeah.
But if you want to be unique, yeah, leave it wood. Okay? That's the female thread. And I didn't have a good piece of boxwood to bring her. I would have done this in boxwood tonight. It's nice. It's like it shaves off. You've machined it?
Yes.
Oh, it's incredible stuff.
Yes.
But English-
I like Bradford pear too. I'm starting
Yeah.
to use that.
Yeah, Bradford pear is good. Yeah, I love that stuff. But both of them machine like
That's
plastic.
nice. So smooth.
How about that real heavy wood? Can you use for ships, rudders, sailing ships?
Lignum vitae is good
Yeah.
too. Yeah, it's oily.
Does that turn?
Yeah, it does nice. But it's another one of those, sometimes it hand chases and sometimes it doesn't.
Do you use it on the green side, or do you let it dry?
Oh no, it's dry. Yeah, what I've used has been cured. Well, it's always got like wax in it. I made a 3-minute timer, egg timer, that I gave as a Turner of the Month for the Charlotte Club a couple of years ago, and it was out of Lignum Vitae. And it was I copy a lot of 18th century stuff. I came back too late. But I made it out of that, and it's very nice turned. It was about that tall, and you could turn it. And I didn't put a finish on it. I just sanded it. Took Scotch Brite, if you're familiar with Scotch Brite, to it, and then took a cloth and buffed it while it was running. And it was just like you put a finish on it, because it has so much oil.
Yeah.
It was pretty neat stuff.
Tell the truth, that 17th century stuff is just when you was a kid.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, during the Revolution, I was there helping them. Okay, I just measured the inside of that. I'm going to make this piece about 60 thousandths bigger. Okay, I'm not going to get real fancy, because we were turning this stuff by hand. This is one of the things that I've been doing for years, and something that I just saw somebody do. If you get into where you're sizing a lot of stuff, I don't know what you guys are doing, sizing stuff. I don't know if you're cutting it and measuring it and cutting it and measuring it. You know, put you to sleep. Buy a $19 pair of calipers. That's all these cost, I think, from Harbor Freight. Make sure if you're going to use them while the machine's running, you round those edges off. Around it, just sand these corners off. If you're used to using spring calipers, if you got a good pair, they're already rounded off. If they're not, round them off, because when you're running this, you come in to size this, wood has a real natural tendency to want to be uneven. If you have sharp corners, they're going to catch the uneven, and it's going to go this way, okay? And if you're lucky, it's only going to hurt you. It's one of those things. But if you round it, you can size stuff while it's running. This is what I'm going to do. And you do it a few times, you'll get the feel for it. Very often I can get the diameter within 5 thousandths of what I was cutting. It's gotten to the point very seldom do I lose this part of the game, and if I'm fitting stuff together. And I'm just going to size it with my parting tool. And another thing too, if you're sizing, using calipers or whatever, make sure your tool's really sharp. If it starts getting dull, you'll get lots of bumping and grinding. You want to eliminate that as much as possible. Yeah, we're good. And the same thing, I'm going to do a radius here to get the tool started. I'm going to do a relief so I don't end up bumping into there. And I don't know what it is, even in metalworking, which I did a great portion of my life. Inside threads are easy. They always cut nice, no matter however you do it. Outside threads rip and tear and pull. It does the same thing on wood. So it's just something to keep up an eye on. Now I saw a really neat trick a couple of years ago at the North Carolina Woodturners Symposium. One of the guys from England was showing some stuff and said, if you hang around, I'll show you how to cut threads. Well, the guy was like one of the best in the world. Woodturning retired not too long ago. And when he was a kid in England, he made thousands of boxes. That's how he made his living. He'd come home from school, turn boxes, thread them for pills and all that kind of stuff. And what he did, I've never got it to work, but when he did it, I'm going, crap, this is pretty cool. But I couldn't do it. He would turn a diameter on the end of here that would just fit inside of here, like a tenon. And then he would turn the diameter he's going to thread about what he thought the diameter should be by eye. But he'd been doing, I think it was 20 threads per inch, and he'd probably done a gazillion of them. Then what he would do is he would start chasing, and when the chaser would touch the diameter of the piece that went in here, he would try it and would thread almost every time. He'd cut that end off and it was done. It was amazing. The guy was truly, truly a talented woodturner. One of the best. You want this to be pretty close to center when you're sitting horizontal, okay? Slow it down. And hopefully this will show better. See where I'm approaching it here? And once you feel it, you'll get the rhythm. Shoot a little bit of the thread off in the front. Don't force them up on there. I've had them, I couldn't get them apart. But it makes for a nice golly gee whiz thing to do. Here's another example. See where it doesn't fit perfect? Not sure why. But I'm sure there's a way to get around it. I haven't met the right folks yet. And I think it has to do with that snake.
If you don't shape the outside of your box, so after you get your threads cut in, you're not going to notice any wobbling anyway.
Well, it won't be the wobbling so much, Jack, is that fitting flush up here. You see that
Oh, yeah.
gap?
I
It fits
see.
up here.
So you're really not moving the tool, it's kind of pulling itself.
Well, you're
You're
not
getting
holding it back,
Okay.
ideally, but it's something you gotta be careful because sometimes the wood wants to hold it back. Let me pass this one around, I'll get this other thing set up.
How do you line up the grain in the wood?
Oh, I'll show you when I do the other one, and I can do it here, but I just wanted to show you all.
Feed that part down.
That's one of them you slap yourself on the forehead when he shows you.
Yeah, you go, oh man, I should have known that. You gotta have wood that's matched.
Right.
Okay. That should work. Let me put a little bit of
That
mineral.
must keep cheese in because there's a mouse there.
That's right. Sometimes I bring the mineral oil. Sometimes I'll use mineral oil. You just have to have a feel for it. It will help you cut the wood. In some woods it doesn't do diddly. Okay? And if you use mineral oil, and I would try it, if you decide you're going to try to thread, try mineral oil. I've had good luck. And again, like I say, there's times when I've had it not do squat. Get you a toothbrush or a nylon brush, and you'll thread, clean it off, thread, clean it off. Okay? Any questions? That's hand chasing, sort of, kind of. The quick version. I just drilled 1.5 inch hole in here. Depends on what size you want, what size you put in here. Very often, like for those pieces, I bored the hole in, cut it out, bored it. And for you guys, new folks, when I did this stuff, this was green. They would be green enough that they were throwing water.
Wow.
And it just makes it easier to machine. And I'd hollow it out, and this would look sort of kind of like this. I mean, you wouldn't know it was going to end up looking like this, but it would be sort of that shape. This would be hollowed out, wall thickness of maybe like that. I'm trying to remember because this goes way back. This probably wasn't even cut into it, but I had a foot. Okay. Set it aside, let that dry. When you're threading, you want to make sure your stuff's not wet. Because if you thread it while it's green and you put it together, I guarantee you that tomorrow it won't come apart because it's going to egg shape. It's going to dry funky. And I'm one of these silly anal people that a bowl should be round. And it doesn't have to be. There's people that do ornamental stuff or artsy stuff. They'll turn it green, finish it green, let it warp, and it's a swan looking back on itself or whatever. You know? Yeah. In the same way, this was all green. And I cut it, dried it, and then finished it. Okay.
Cuts nicer, but it does
Yeah, if you ever get a chance to cut green, it's nice. It's like fun to do a hat. You guys saw the hat.
Oh, yeah.
The one thing that makes them fun is it's all green all the way through, and the tools last better. Doesn't get as hot. You're cutting dry stuff that big, you're up inside and it starts to get warm. But yeah, when you're threading, you want to be very stable. Okay? That being said, I drilled a hole in here. I'm going to make this piece about 90-some thousandths, a little less than 1/8 of an inch, 3/30 seconds, bigger. Because it has to be bigger, so when I cut threads in there, I have a place to go, okay?
60,000.
I'm going to do same sort of things on this
Oh, yeah.
that I did with pan chasing. Mostly only to make it look nice. This is bigger. And if you have a bit of a taper here, a little bit of raise, the angle there, they go together nicer. You won't pull that first thread apart. But it's not for the same reason that I did the hand chasing. Still want to release. Still want a release to go into so when my tool comes back in and not hitting something. So that's the male
I
thread.
thought that's what he was using first.
And I do this normally off the two chucks.
Oh, is that just the spindle gouge you were using? I couldn't. Okay.
You were there,
I'm just going to put a little bit of a chamfer that's a little bit bigger, I hope, than what the thread depth is. And I'm going to do a thread relief, but on this mechanism I don't have to. I can stop it. When I set it up, you'll see. Get to a certain spot, I can stop it and back up and come to the same spot each time. I'm just going to put a thread relief in here, mostly because I can. I'm going to save it. See, cherry's not bad. You were saying somebody told you cherry's hard. And hard is relative.
And so many stock pockets it has.
Yeah, he gets stoned. Yeah. Turns out, shorts thing. Cherry was like one of the favorite woods for foundries, for pattern makers, because it would hold form. It was easy to work with, and they liked it.
Now, do you put a taper on the inside of that? I mean, is it just a straight
hole?
Straight hole? When you're putting that little area that you're taking out for your thread?
Oh, yeah, I mean, it might be. I didn't spend a lot of time worrying about it.
Yeah.
Depends on what I was going to do with it. If it was going to be something that somebody look at, and yeah, it might fool with it some. But normally, like I said, with boxes, I would hollow that out down inside.
Yeah.
At the end of this, at the end where the threads are, I would have started hollowing all the way down there. That would have, my thread relief would have been.
It would stay to
Way
the
down.
contour of your outside of your piece.
Okay.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. These are stops. When you're threading, you want to be able to come back to the same place each time. synchronized helix. They're very complicated geometrically. They've always amazed me, and I taught machine shop for a while. I trained apprentices for a long time, and threads to me are just like one of those things that are so underrated in life. Without them, we wouldn't be driving our cars as cheap as we did. That sort of thing. There's lots of guys that are making these now. What you want, in my opinion, is some way to do this. Either very finely calibrated or something. The one from Nova, theirs is not even calibrated. But you can get, they have an adjustable stop. Once you get to where you think you want to be, you can lock that down. It's pretty neat. This is just because it's built into the stage. I have a friend who made his own slide. He's got a small mill, just made his own slide, a couple of rods. It works really great. Some way to hold a cutter. I don't know how well this one's going to last, because this is long. I'm going to run this slower than normal, because this is not my drawbar for this lathe. This is the drawbar for my big. I picked up the wrong one. Picked up the drawbar for my big lathe, but it will work. I'm pretty sure. You want to have some way to lock that in. This is a Morse taper. Morse tapers work great if you're pushing this way. You're pushing it through the center. If you look at drill chucks and stuff, drill presses, and you're coming straight down, it's pushing up in that taper, it's locking, it's doing what it's supposed to do. The thing that drives the Morse taper stuff is the taper itself. But if you start doing lateral, sideways motion stuff, it works itself loose. I could always tell when students would put a drill chuck up into a milling machine and mill with it, because the head on the drill chuck would come off. There's a little tiny taper to them. And they'd tell me it just fell off. And I said, no, it didn't just fall off. I didn't just fall out of the turnip truck, you're right. So find some way to lock that in. You won't have a problem. And we were talking about the Nova lathe. That's the thing about the Nova lathe that I think is really nice. The tailstock, when you crank it to drill, it's driving this big bolt, so to speak, through there, and you've got exposure to the bolt. So you can do a drawbar for your chuck, and it'll never come out on you, because it will travel with it. If you try to do it on a standard one, you're not going to be able to crank that but so far, because that stays stationary and the bolt, the nut, so to speak, travels out, locks up. But anyhow, that's neither here nor there. But always use some kind of mechanism to lock that in. That cutter I bought from a company called WT Tool here in Charlotte. They sell machine tool supplies. It's called a double angle cutter. Most of the folks that make the mechanisms for threading have a cutter similar to that. A couple of them have a single point cutter that comes around. I don't care for that because it doesn't cut as clean. I got a real good deal on that one years ago. So, and I don't know what they cost now, probably 39 or so bucks, 40 bucks. But it's going to spin in here. And
I think I ought to borrow this like you did my Jordan's tools.
no.
I had a brand new set of.
And they worked good.
John Jordan was at my house one day and he gave me a brand new set of his tools.
Wow.
Roland says, I want to try them. A year later I got them back.
That's how it is in the club.
They worked good. Now all your cutting action is going to be on this tool.
Yes.
If you ever get into or see ornamental turning, they do some of the same silly things. They use the lathe, but it's not used as a lathe, okay, but it is a lathe. This is one of those instances that's going to do all my cutting, okay? Now, I was telling you, I do the male thread and this way first, because you take one of these off or whatever, you look at that, the thing you see is the male thread. I want it to look nice. I can fit the female thread to it, and it would be nice, especially that pitch, that big pitch. So if you do this, you don't look at the female thread, even if, although it turned out okay, even if you get this, you don't look at that so much as you're looking at that, okay? And that's one of the things with
Thank you.
with turning, any of this woodworking stuff, you want it to look nice. This is a clamp stop combination kind of a thing, because once I start threading, I may want to move this out of the way and do some stuff, but I'll need to come back to the same place. Otherwise, I lose that timing on the helix. That's what I was going to say about threading. It's amazing the technical things you're dealing with threading if you get into the real pursuit. No matter what I do, I'm going to have the helix with a pitch of what this bolt is. Okay. And I want to be careful of how I cut this. I want to be cutting, in machine shop terminology, is fine milling, where the cutter's coming into the wood, so it doesn't want to pick the wood up off of it, because already I'm doing this because it's tough to put threads on this kind of wood. So that's the direction I'm cutting on. And you can see, hopefully, you can see the threads starting to form. And I've got a ways to go.
For some reason, the one thing that a guy couldn't get wrapped around my mind at first was the cutter sitting there spinning, so I thought you had to keep turning the piece so it wouldn't cut the threads off when it stopped, but it doesn't.
It's starting to show.
Yes, ma'am.
And believe me, cherry is not one of the fun woods that you want to do this kind of stuff with. It's brittle. It's not that it's working against you, it's just the grain is laying in like this, and what you're trying to do is pull it out. You're actually pulling it out. Same way when you're hand chasing, that's why hand chasing is so tough to do. You got nothing working for you. This is cutting little nibbles away, forcing the grain into itself, so it keeps it from cutting or breaking.
Roland, if you would just spray that lightly with water, would that help?
Maybe, but I'm going to show you what I do. Just one more cut, and it might. I've never tried it. I've done. I didn't pay attention to where I was. No matter what I do, as long as I don't move away from here, my pitch is going to be good, okay? I'm going to put CA glue in here. What it does is it seeps into the grain.
Thin CA.
This is the thin. The wood soaks it up, and it plasticizes the threads a little bit.
Roland, have you ever tried the flexible CA?
Yeah.
See if that works any better.
Never heard of it.
There's a couple companies, CPH International Starbond, you know, it's in the magazine. They have some real nice, they have medium weight and they have thick, and it actually does stay slightly flexible.
Not big.
It's got a rubberizer in it of some sort, I can't tell you what it is.
But if I wanted this to be stiff,
When I say flexible, I mean not absolutely brittle.
oh, okay, okay. So it has some stiffness to it.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay. Shoot, I have to look at it. Now, if I started cutting this from here, going back in the other way, it's picking up, because the cutter's turning this way, it's going to pick the grain up. That's one thing I want to make sure I get through. It's very, very important, especially in this kind of wood. And I've done ebony. I think you could do almost anything with that wood. It's incredible. But it's expensive. Same with black, African blackwoods, and all those very dense, very nice woods. It's like $84 a board foot. Yeah, it's out of my league. I'm just going to take a nice little cut. I'm just using this just to clean the little frizzies out. If you look on the, if you can see on the top of there, there's a little bit of flat. You want a little bit of flat. In the theory of threads, there's a formula. It's supposed to be a certain width across and that sort of thing. And you can get real crazy with it. I'm just going to take a look. I'm just going to do this by eye. Because I'm going to make the other piece fitted anyway. Call that one the size, because we can't, I mean, it's ours. I've always liked doing threads. My background is machining, and I learned how to do them lots of different ways in the metal world. I'm going to leave this on the chuck. Now, if I have to go back and pick this up, there's some tricked out stuff I can do. But I'm hoping I don't have to. Normally I don't have to. So we'll say that one's done. And this would be the piece that has to fit. This is the one I'm going to pull out, unscrew, come back, slide it back up. I'm going to make sure this stuff's timed out right. And I want to have enough space where I'm coming in and out without hitting stuff, right?
So you don't have to remeasure the diameter of those original threads you just cut. You don't have to remeasure after you cut your threads?
No, hopefully I made that bigger than this by the amount that I needed to make it. I'm pretty sure I did. And then I'm going in the right direction. If you pick up on the wrong side, like if I come over here, I can come over that side and start cutting, picking the threads up or picking the wood up. If I go on this side, coming from the outside going in, now I'm pushing the grain down. Wrong. I'm just doing this so I can get a feel for where I'm at. And normally this would be over here, or this would actually turn around. I had somebody ask me one time why they have it here, because there's a big opening in here. I can't put a key in it to fit my brake on. So I can put a key this way. All I want to do is have the calibration in there. If I was going into the spot where I didn't have a cut relief, I'd mark one of these jaws, come around, get an idea where I am here, and when that jaw came up, I would know that I'm in the same spot that I was before. That would stop. But it's not I'm not worried about that.
Back it out. And
Your
back it
cutter's
down.
turning backwards
Yeah, but you're going.
is the only thing. I'm hoping I'm not too deep.
Oh, there is a forward edge on the cutter.
Right. It's a
Okay.
cut. It's like, imagine it's like a router bit.
Okay.
So
Like you've done it once or twice.
yeah, I know the numbers. I lost track of them there for a minute, but it came back to me. Okay, so now it's done. I'm not going to worry with. Normally I would CA glue that and cut it again and stiffen it. But what I want to show you.
That one's kind of square, isn't it?
Yeah,
It's pretty square.
I have never had it not work. That's
Mm.
the thing with the machine cut threads. Every time they work.
Mm.
And I think part of it with the hand chase, because I did some, hasn't been too long doing that persimmon, came out really good. And I think part of it is that snaking. And it does, well, if the helix isn't right, it isn't in the right pitch, and there's so many things that can go wrong with threads. like I say, they're technically very, very complicated.
And if you're not perfectly horizontal with your tool.
Right, yeah, everything, all those little things work out crazy for you. And if you're using 20 threads per inch, it probably works pretty good.
I wonder if it's because when you're hand chasing, you're spinning the wood to where this, your cutter's spinning a lot quicker and you're going to get a better cut on your wood.
Well, it's more consistent.
Yeah.
The wood's not homogeneous, so you got hard, soft, hard, soft. Then you've got different amount of grain, less grain, and all those things start to complicate how fast it wants to go. Where woods like boxwood are more consistent, those things, all those things help. Okay, let me knock this out.
Or like what I did a year or so ago.
Pardon?
That was white mahogany that I gave you.
Yeah, that might have done a good job. I never thought to try that, Jack.
What's that, Amadire, or what are you talking about?
White mahogany, it was dense.
Oh, that stuff was, a guy, his wife is from Paraguay, and he brings me this piece of wood. I mean, it looks red, but they call it white mahogany, and it was a piece about that big around, probably, like 4 inches across, and about that long, and weighed probably 35, 40 pounds.
I'm not going to get real crazy and do crazy forms or anything, but I just want to show you the trick. If I grab the two right pieces for lining up the grain.
How do you do that when you're using two separate lathes?
Two separate lathes. There it is.
Now, when he's using two separate lathes, all he's doing is threading on one.
Right, I'm just threading on one.
If to get the threads to match up to the grain lines.
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm going to show you. Right there, I'm going to mark this with a marker. I would not do this except to show you one demonstration, okay? If you, can you see the grain?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would match up in that position, roughly, right? Okay. So I'm going to say there and there. So if I turn this, I have to go that much more for it to close. Sit on your hands.
Okay.
You're going to slap yourself in the forehead. Because when I saw this done, that's what I did. Only got that much more to go.
Wow.
Crazy, isn't it?
Wow.
That's why all my stuff I match up. Now the bad thing is, if you miss it, you've got a whole other picture. And then you start to lose the match up of the grain. The closer you can cut this together, see, it's that much. Go ahead.
Oh, my.
And it's just one of the golly gee whiz things you can show people. When I do my stuff, this is what I do.
Did you ever have one come out exactly the first time?
No, must not have, because I'm sure I would remember.
We'd have heard about it, yes.
And then what I normally do is I'll leave it just shy of fitting, because what I've also found out doing this from playing with it, you loosen it up a little bit and it wants to go just a little bit past like. But you can always shoot more lacquer or whatever you're going to do. I've had to do that, but just barely miss it. Not these are perfect. But I do highly suggest if you plan on doing much threading, this little bit.
Well, there's one other way to correct that if you miss it. Put a little beauty ring of ebony or something
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
Oh, that's a good idea.
on the male part, and that'll take up your space again. Then you can start trimming again.
One of the guys in the Charlotte club, Bruce Lacey, he's very good. Probably the most underrated wood turner in the area. That's what he does. He intentionally, when he threads, and it eliminates that thing in there, the undercut.
Oh, yeah.
So he'll put it, like for this, he'd have used a piece of black wood or ebony, something very dark, make up the difference. He glues it in there after he takes it to the thickness, and it's done. Then what I would also do, let me go ahead and do that. This is going to be a little bit uneven because it's wood, it's not perfect. But once you get in the position you want, then finish the outside. You want to get it close because if you have any angle, inside, outside, once you get it into position, you get it out of that position, it's going to do some other displacement thing. And if you're doing, well, if you're doing stuff for yourself even, if you want it to be very nice, that's what you want to do. If you're doing it for presents and stuff, you want people to show all their friends and relatives. You can tell them they have your permission to say that you're great. I used to tell my kids that. In fact, I still do. I said, you have my permission to tell all your friends that I'm great. They buy it, but they're kids. What can you say?
Right. No matter how old they are, they're kids.
That's right. There you go. That's how that's done.
Very nice, very nice. Very
It's
nice.
faster than hand chasing, and it's way, way more accurate. But hand chasing's fun to experiment with. And if you find the right wood, believe me, it's neat. It will come out all the time. Well, most of the time. And learn to do it fast.
Where your figure goes in, what have you got? What if you have to put a nut in there? What kind of a nut is in that, under that plastic that you're cranking in?
Oh, it's the plastic.
Oh,
yeah.
you just
Yeah.
have the plastic?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
And I used that. Bruce also made one of these. I did a demo in Charlotte a few years ago. Yeah.
What is that for?
It's 10. That's 3/4 10.
410, okay.
But whatever you pick as a thread, and,
Yeah. But that's
I
a good
used the
thread.
plastic because I wanted to be able to, and I made it long. It averages out errors that's in the screw, although there's very few errors. I single pointed this on a seriously nice tool and lathe.
Yeah,
But you could use all thread.
yeah.
That's what Bruce used. He used a piece of all thread. I think he put 2 nuts in his, if I remember right, and it works fine.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing I think is to have
Who, Roland?
the pitch diameter of the screw and the diameter out here run the same, or you end up getting this. Okay.
Yeah.
So if you eliminate that, you're good. And you can buy these slides. I mean, not like this one, but you can buy one that works for like $90 or so. Okay. Yeah, you're ready to rock and roll. And then make this to where it's centered to whatever lathe you have. And this one will fit my Rikon. And I've got a stand that I set that on. That's my 16-inch jet. And if I had a Powermatic or whatever, I'd make another stand that fit here. And it's like over $600 if you were to buy one of those. Man, I want it to fit everything I have. And then when I take all this stuff off, it fits my Rose engine. But that's it.
That was very good.
Did it make Make sense?
Yes, sir. I don't know.
Now you gotta go out.
Yeah, sort of.
Something else to do now.
30 seconds, whatever he's talking about.
You guys need wood for your
6-4, 6-2.